Well, we're now into day 4 of this election campaign, and one of the earliest issues to come out of the gates is the issue of housing. Perhaps not surprising, as this country is in a housing crisis, with the Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation saying back in January that nearly 1 in 2 Canadians are concerned about being able to afford their homes. Well, with his thoughts on what the parties are promising to address the crisis, we're now joined by Mike Moffatt, an economist and founding director of Place Centre at the Smart Prosperity Institute. He has also advised the former Trudeau government on housing policy in the past. Mike, good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
So listen, let's begin with the Liberal plan under Mark Carney. And, early in this campaign, this is basically what they are calling for. They're calling for the removal of the GST for first-time home buyers for homes under $1 million, unlocking private capital for new home construction, expanding the use of prefab modular homes, double nonprofit community housing, and expand how the Canada housing infrastructure is used. When you hear those key points, Mike, I'm wondering how you would assess what the Liberals are proposing in this election.
Well, I think other than the GST piece, that those are more kind of targets than policies. So it's nice to have a vision, but it's not clear entirely how they'll get there. On the GST piece, I think that will help because the GST only applies to new homes. It is a cost of construction. So you lower that, you make construction cheaper. I wish they had extended that to all buyers of primary residences, because there's a lot of, let's say, seniors who would like to downsize from their current home who won't get that rebate. And downsizing seniors would really help unlock some of those family-sized homes for the next generation. So I like what they're doing on GST, but I think they could have been a little bit more bold with this one.
A little bit more bold, because, for example, the target of using prefab and modular homes, not enough to know that it will make a dent?
Well, I mean, it's a goal, it's a vision, but it's not clear how they'll get there. So, so yes, it's great to want to do those things, but what are the actual policy instruments? What are the changes you're going to make to make that happen?
Okay. So listen, let's switch over now to what we're hearing from Conservatives so far when it comes to housing. And what they are calling for includes the removal of the GST on home sales under $1.3 million, a reduction in immigration numbers, the elimination of the Housing Accelerator Fund and the Housing Infrastructure Fund, also a requirement of municipalities to increase housing starts by 15% annually or risk losing federal infrastructure dollars. What do you make of what we're hearing from the Tories so far?
Yeah, I think they've been a little bit more bold than the Liberals. So, having it at one point, the GST rebate at 1.3 million instead of 1 million, it's really going to help in the GTA and Greater Vancouver area, since a lot of homes fall in that price point. Unlike the Liberals, they've made it available to everyone. Surprisingly, they're making it available to investors as well, or people who are buying secondary properties like cottages. So, that might be a little bit controversial. On some of the other pieces, the Housing Accelerator, I think, is in desperate need of reform, but I think it's a good idea. So I'd like to see them keep it. On some of the municipal targets, I think we'll just find on that, and the current government has had this issue too, where municipalities will say, like, look, you're not putting enough money on the table. We'll just forego it rather than deal with all the restrictions you're putting on us. So I think they'll find that that's not providing enough of an incentive for municipalities to act.
Okay, not enough of an incentive. Let's go back to the Housing Accelerator Fund, because you, as you say, you would like to see reforming it rather than getting rid of it. How has it actually helped? How could it even help more, do you think?
So the Housing Accelerator is basically kind of a cash for reforms model, where the federal government provides money to municipalities, in exchange municipalities make for a series of reforms. It's a great idea on the blackboard, but it's fallen down in some areas. At first, it took a long time to roll out because the federal government made unique deals with municipalities. It wasn't a one-size-fits-all. So, Ottawa got a different deal than Toronto, got a different deal from Calgary. But they also haven't put checks and balances in place to make sure that municipalities are actually making the reforms that they're required to. So, I think a little bit more oversight and governance on this. I think, having trying to, have all of these kind of bespoke deals wasn't the right approach. But that's the kind of thing a new government can fix rather than throwing out the program entirely.
Okay. Listen, let's switch over to the NDP now, because that party, they want to build 100,000 rent-controlled homes by 2035 on all suitable Crown lands. They want to acquire more public land to build more rent-controlled homes. They want to train 100,000 more people in skilled trades. They want to publicly finance the building of nonprofit housing with community partners. And they also want to raise taxes on house flipping. What do you make of the NDP proposal?
Well, again, kind of like the Liberal proposal that, 100,000 homes sounds fantastic, but there's no kind of indication of how they would get there. So it's nice to have a target, but, there has to be some policy, some reforms behind it. Otherwise, it's difficult to see what is different here from what the federal government is currently doing. The federal government currently has a land bank to build affordable housing and work with co-ops and not-for-profits, just like the NDP is proposing. The NDP is suggesting a little bit more money for land acquisition, but land is expensive. $1 billion sounds like a lot of money, but it doesn't necessarily go all that far. So it's really not clear to me what the NDP is proposing that's really that much different than what the current government is already doing.
Okay, quickly running out of time. Let's bring in the Greens right now, because when you look at that party, they essentially want to launch the biggest, and this is their words, the biggest public housing construction program since the 1970s. They want to use covenants to make sure housing built with public money stays affordable forever. They also want to stop corporations from buying single-family homes, and they want to eliminate what they say are tax advantages for the real estate investment trusts. What do you make of the Green proposals?
Yeah, again, I love the vision of it, of building a lot more homes and returning to the 1970s. But there's no indication of how they would get there or where they're going to find the money. On some of the other things, like I don't think really changing the tax treatment of apartment companies is really going to affect things. So it's a bold vision. I give them points for that, but there's not really much here on implementation.
Okay, so overall, because you found a little bit of what's right and what's wrong in just about everything that we've addressed so far. Overall, what do you want the political parties to do? What's that missing piece that you need from whatever party forms the next government?
Well, I think the big thing that we need is details. 10 to 15 years ago, when parties would release these ideas, they would have a 6 to 8 page backgrounder to suggest how it would work. Now what we're getting is, press releases with a single sentence, and it's really not clear what the parties are talking about. But on a policy viewpoint, I think the conservatives mostly had the right idea around GST. I'd like to see the other parties adopt that, maybe with some tweaks. I also think we need to see a lot more around the federal government providing financing to building purpose-built rentals. They already do some of that. It's actually worked fairly well. I think we could expand these things and really get more shovels in the ground. So, but at a high level, it's taking that ambition, which all of the parties have, but actually making it real and talking about, okay, here are the specific things we would do, rather than just having a set of goals.
Mike Moffatt, always appreciate the insight. Thank you for this.
No, thank you for having me.